In Maitland's busy high street, all dressed in red and blue, the city's famous black boy is there for all to view. He stood there by the roadside 100 years or so, reminding passing people of the days of long ago. He's held the reins of horses while their owners were away, and taken care of sulkies and local farmers' drays. Although the horse and sulky days will never come again, he stands with hand extended to take a rider's rein.
Maitland's Jocko statue is possibly more well known than Maitland itself. Indeed, an African-American named Wayman LaFall traveled to Maitland in 2009 to see why Jocko was so loved by the Maitland community. Years later, in 2014, LaFall wrote 2 books about Jocko. Jocko, A Long Way from Home Down Under, and also The Legend of Jocko. LaFall's books examined one such legend, that of Jocko Graves, who was a son of a free black man. And while Jocko was too young to join the American Revolutionary Army, he did so anyway, following in his father's footsteps. General Washington deemed Jocko too young to be involved in battle, and on Christmas Eve, December of 1776, ordered him to tend to the officers' horses, and keep a lantern burning so the soldiers would know how to return to camp after the fighting ended. After Washington's victory over the British and following a blizzard, the general returned to find that young Jocko Graves had frozen to death in the spot where he was ordered to stand watch, with the lantern still burning in his clenched frozen hand. Maitland Jocko's physical appearance was first seen in a sketch of W.S. Harrison & Co., General Ironmonger's store, also known as the Fitzroy Stores, High St Maitland. In a later photograph taken in the 1940s, Jocko had the markings of the J.W. Fisk and Company of New York City, which was the most prominent American manufacturer of decorative cast iron and cast zinc in the second half of the 19th century. Fisk was founded in 1863. Mr. Samuel Hart announced in the Mercury on the 17th of December 1853 that he would open in a few days in the Fitzroy Stores, previously occupied by Mr. Gates. On the 15th of February 1854, Samuel advertised the rear of his premises Fitzroy Stores to let, suitable for a coach builder as previously occupied by Mr. Gates. Samuel Hart died on the 7th of July 1877, with the store taken over by his son Mr. Henry Hart. The rear section wasn't occupied until William Samuel Harrison moved into the back of the Fitzroy Stores building previously occupied by Mr. H. Hart on the first day of February 1881, as Mr. Hart had not fully disposed of his extensive stock. William Harrison had previously worked for E.P. Capper & Son for 17 years. It seems Capper had a good relationship with Sydney's Friend and Company, with the Mercury reporting in 1876 of a friendly Easter cricket match between the two in Sydney. This most likely led to William being an agent for Friend's ironmongering goods and Friend's importation of hitching posts from Fisk. Henry's brother John Hart took over ownership of the store, and on the 28th of May 1881, the Mercury reported that the whole of the premises underwent a complete overhaul. Portion of the Fitzroy Stores was cordoned off for John Hart, with the other portion occupied by W.S. Harrison. John Hart bought the adjacent baker's shop and demolished it in 1885. He then built and moved into a new concrete-rendered 2-story brick building on this site. With Hart's Buildings, 1885 worked on the above parapet. W.S. Harrison & Co. then occupied the whole of the Fitzroy Stores. The sketch of Jocko in front of Harrison's store first appeared in a picture supplement to the Maitland Mercury and Hunter River General Advertiser on the 6th of August 1892. The Mercury advised the pictorial was taken from photographs by Mr. Morris Moss, It is possible then that Jocko was erected sometime between 1881 and 1892. William Harrison left his store in late 1893, and went to manage the Great Northern Hardware store also in High Street. W.S. Harrison & Co. was then taken over by W.S. Friend & Co. of Sydney and managed by Mr. John Armstrong for a short period till Mr. Sidney Bell took over. The W.S. Harrison & Company ironmongers, glass and crockery store closed when Mr. Sidney Bell requested Mr. John Enright to sell the stock by auction on 4th of December 1895. Mr. Bell subsequently returned to the Sydney office of W.S. Friend & Co. Following the closure by Harrison, Mrs. M. Winter transferred her florist and refreshment business to the Fitzroy Store's tea rooms until it was demolished on 14th of September 1900.
Following the demolition of the Fitzroy stores, Jocko was then bought by Archibald Down MacDonald and relocated to his tobacco store on the corner of High Street and Church Street soon after. According to the MacDonald family, it was erected on the day that Jimmy Governor, Australia's notorious bushranger, was caught, being the 27th of October 1900. A local hairdresser, John Hayes, also operated from the shop until the 1950s. In August 1953, a truck taking materials to MacDonald's shop, which was being renovated, knocked Jocko over and smashed him with numerous injuries as he hit the pavement. Mr. Clive Greedy of C. J. Greedy & Company offered to repair the figure and replace it once the alterations were completed. In the hollow body of the original Black Boy, Greedy found some interesting items which were published in the Maitland Mercury on the 11th of August 1953. A theatre bill for the Garden Theatre West Maitland advertising William Hart in his second Great Thomas Ince super dramatic creation, The Silent Man, followed by a second feature with Charlie Chaplin in his latest and funniest comedy, His Vacation. Also found was a piece of paper in a small bottle, with the words Water Fountain, statue, erected in 1892 by A.D. MacDonald, tobacconist and newsagent, established 1866, High Street, West Maitland, signed by Ian and Robert Curnow. Mr. Robert Curnow, the great-grandson of A.D. MacDonald, told Mr. Jack Patton, a historian researching Jocko, in 2009, that he and his brother Ian inserted the time capsule in 1945 for posterity and to remind the people who found it of the past. When Jocko was repositioned on High Street, he was painted in gaily decorated red coat and blue pants for the first time. It was only 3 months to the previous incident, when the Maitland Mercury, the Newcastle Morning Herald and the Sydney Daily Telegraph reported the Black Boy had become a victim of a hit-and-run driver. Constable M. White came across Jocko laying on the footpath with one foot still attached to the iron stand. This time he was brought back by Sorensen Constructions, who welded the legs back and stood him in concrete in December 1953. In August 1953, the Mercury reported that the statue was originally intended as a water fountain and hitching post, but was installed before Walker Waterworks were completed. It also reported that his mouth had to be sealed as he had become a depository for a wide collection of articles. Jocko never disappears from Maitland residents' minds and pops up now and then, such as when the Mercury reported in June 1950 that he might be called upon, and that his enigmatical smile works non-stop, telling everyone that through shadows and sunshine, peace and war, floods and drought, that somehow things will work out all right. Over time, Jocko's blue pants faded to almost white as seen in a photo of 1969. Jocko remained there until he was stolen on 27 August 1971. Mr. Noel Blake, the secretary of Maitland Chamber of Commerce, described the malicious intent as a catastrophe in terms of historical significance. Mr. Blake said Jocko was Maitland's crown jewels. Jocko was later found by police in Sydney, where 3 youths were caught and later charged with stealing Jocko, the property of Maitland City Council. Council workmen replaced Jocko on a concrete pedestal just in time for him to patiently be ready for the afternoon's Melbourne Cup on 2 November 1971. It would appear that Jocko's pants were painted white at the time. Of course, Jocko doesn't let his followers forget who he is. He regularly crops up in the Mercury to remind us. Again in 2020 and 2021. In July 2023, despite some opposition councillors voted to investigate making Jocko a heritage item. Deputy Mayor Councillor Griffin stated,
"The little fella has contributed to the very fabric of this city and what it means to be a Maitlander. He's an icon which people have come to love and respect, and it's time that he's given protection under the local environment plan and his story told."
Jocko is truly Maitland's icon, having appeared on telephone book covers, postcards of Maitland, and many souvenirs of Maitland. Jocko remains on his pedestal today, smiling in his now blue pants and red coat, keeping an eye out for those that pass by, and waiting to see what the next episode and millennium will bring.
I know he has no beating heart within his iron frame, and he's just a little statue that bears no given name. But treat him as you would a child and not as something cast, and let him stand in memory of your town's historic past.